So with that, I'm going to invite up Raluca Cater, who is the Executive Director of Horizons at Greens Farms Academy.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to try to improvise. If you were part of this beautiful event last year, you may remember that I was the only one that followed directions on the time allotted for the grantees, while everybody else took twice as long. So I'm going to carry over those minutes into tonight's presentation. Round up. We operate on weekends, evenings, and during the summer, so I have no sympathy for this crowd for being here tonight. We're used to it. So Horizons at Greens Farms Academy is a program that operates, as I mentioned, in the summer, on weekends, after school, anytime we can have our students join us, and we do serve now 210 students. We are pre-K through high school, college-ish, the 4 to 24. By the way, the 24 is a surprise for my board. Surprise, or actually I should say it's a surprise for our full-time high school and college coordinator, because he's gonna have to keep thinking that long. But formally we're pre-K to high school, and we're slowly, as our students get older, thinking about what we can do at that level. And we do provide as close to one-on-one services as we can, particularly that happens for the high school students. We have a 4-to-1 ratio in all of the other classrooms in pre-K through 8 or smaller. We do have a data tracking system called STAR, which is used in some Bridgeport classrooms, and according to STAR, we're doing a great job. I think what matters to us the most long-term is our high school graduation rates and post-secondary enrollment, which are both at 100%. Our college retention rates are not 100%, and I can't even tell you what they are for all of our classes, because some of our students did not benefit from our high school programs, so we lost touch. So that's a challenge for us. But we do know that out of the freshmen and sophomore in college, they're still, that received 4 years of support in high school, they're still in college. So we're going to track them very closely. I did talk about our student ratio, and then retention is very important to us. It's always 95 plus year to year. We are close to 70% long-term meaning high school seniors, so we have some work to do. The majority of the students that we lose them because they move out of the geographic area and we can no longer serve them. So we rarely have any other reason for it. And we do have 95% raw attendance, which I like to report on, 98% if we include the excused absences. 85% of our students attend Bridgeport Public Schools, 11% are in schools outside of Bridgeport, through programs such as Open Choice. Close to 70% of the students that we serve are in schools in Bridgeport that are in the red. In the red meaning that they're not performing well according to SBAC or other methods that the state tracks. So we do have a majority of students that need our help. And our faculty retention is close to 80%. And you can take a look at the demographics. I'm not going to cover them in detail, but we do serve students that reflect Bridgeport, and we've incorporated income guidelines. We use the federal poverty guidelines as income limits. And you can see the average income for our families. And we take students when they're 4 and 5. The idea is that we take students of all academic levels, balanced between 1/3 above, at, and below. It really turns out that most of our students are academically at need as they get older, which is something that motivates us to do more. And we also benefit from many volunteers. I want to just quickly talk about the pictures because they show aspects of Horizons. It really is academic, social, and anything else that is encompassed in the whole child approach. We're very fortunate because we benefit from a partnership with Greens Farms Academy, and that means a lot of resources for our students. The bottom picture, Sahara Lewis, who is now, Joe, in 10th grade? 11th, thank you, is at the Island School. She's taking notes underwater. And she was one of the fortunate students that were able to spend a month at the island school in Bahamas. And right above her, those are our 8th graders this past summer, currently in 9th grade. And I was reflecting on the other presentations. So in my 4 years with Horizons, I can count on my 2 hands the number of discipline problems that I've had to handle. And that's not because I hide in a bathroom somewhere and they can't find me, I promise. It's really because we create a nurturing environment. And I would like to say it's primarily because we serve 20 years of our student. We are part of 4 to 24, 20 years of our students and their families' lives. So there's a degree of expectations that we can communicate early on, and we don't have to repeat them over and over again. And many other elements that even other schools are implementing. And the first pictures, the first class kindergartners 4 years ago that are reading Dr. Seuss. So now to talk a little bit about how we benefited from the Tauck Family Foundation support, I created this chart again to show you or to portray the contrast in where we were, where we are now, and still yet where we want to be. And it could not have been done without the Tauck Family Foundation. And you've heard that a lot tonight, but I mean it. And just to be transparent about where we were in 2012 is, what does capacity building even mean? Is that how many people you can fit in a building? It was tough. Understanding the elements of theory of change, or just doing a self-analysis that went very deep, having some transparent conversations, and setting goals for the future. That's what we did with the Tauck Family Foundation. So we've improved across many areas, and yet we still have work to do. I don't want to discredit where we were in 2012, because there's a lot of history, resources, support, and a lot of hard work that was put. We're 16 years old. But if we look back, and I think even my board chairs have been through this process and have been involved in Horizons for a very long time, they can tell you that we are a different organization. We more than grew up. So we built and implemented a lot of things to see where we were, to define goals and to track against them. And we became more ambitious at the same time. I'll just focus a little bit on the 2017, the first goal. It's very important for us that our students do well academically, because we want them to graduate from post-secondary degrees. That's return on investment. That's really how we would measure impact. And we also focus on the social emotional components, which you cannot get away from. And especially with our high school students, they're very evident, because they're doing well in high schools, and by Bridgeport standards, they're all graduating, and that's great, I suppose. But they start tackling some things personally, emotionally, socially at home that create barriers for them to be successful in college. And what's fortunate about my job and everybody who's involved at Horizons is that the students approach us, because they're not the parents, they're not their schools, they're this magical place that they get to interact in. So we really started to be more mindful about how we can respond. Now, we've always been nurturing. I hug children, I high-five them, sometimes we carry them on our shoulders, all inappropriate and according to the Bridgeport public school system, but we love it. And we do that again, 4 to 24, that's the goal. Maybe don't hug the 24-year-olds as much, but they high-five still. So we wanted to be really more mindful about how not just the executive director or the academic director, but that everyone, including the teachers, keep up with the needs of the students. So we launch into SEL by collecting data and not looking at it, which I remember Marisa's reaction. I get these phone calls, and she would say, when are you going to look at it? When are you going to look at it? And my response was always, when we have the tools to do something about it. Because my take is that as nurturing as we are, many of our students will have social, emotional needs. And now we can do something about it with the help of the Harvard team. So this is not scientific whatsoever, but Stephanie Jones from Harvard opened up the mini files. So we have 9 data sets for the last year and a half. And her non-scientific summary was, wow, this is great stuff. So if the data says otherwise, by the time she publishes her report, just disregard that, take it off record. We have hope, and because we have 4-to-1 ratio in the classrooms, teachers, interns, and volunteers included, and because, again, we spend time with the students and their families for such a long time, we really hope that we can make a difference. All we need to know is where every student is every step of the way academically and for SEL purposes, and figure out a model that we can do something about it for every student. We developed a curriculum, a literacy curriculum. It was developed for us. We hired a consultant. She came to visit the program. She spent many, many hours with us, got to know the program during the summer, and developed a curriculum that I'm so proud of. We are a school. We became a school. It's intense. The students are reading. We also purchased a reading intervention program from Fountains and Pinnell, and it has social emotional elements embedded. Prior to the Tauck Family Foundation, we would have not thought about merging those two. We would have just assumed we already do a good job. Why invest in something else? But the curriculum is serious, and it's hard. And very few, I think Lisa is our academic director, I think one of our classes got through it the first summer completely, and that was great success for me. Everybody else is miserable, and they're thinking, what's happening? It's too much. It was designed for longer than 6 weeks, longer than the summer program on purpose, so we're going to just get better and better and make sure that we complete it. But it has scope of continuity, so it really looks at what each student learns across their tenure with Horizons, which is important from an academic point of view and the social emotional piece. The goal for 2017, which may be ambitious, but under the SEL category, parents read great books to their children in a welcoming environment on a daily basis. That would be one of our goals for what we want to do with the powerful impact that we have at Horizons. It's one of many goals, but if we can make that happen, and if all of our students read on grade level by 3rd grade, there's a beautiful statistics that say that their chances of graduating from high school and post-secondary degrees just skyrockets. And it's very important to us that that happens. So, of course, just like Achievement First in New Beginnings, we're not only looking at what we're doing in the classroom, but how can we use the buy-in from the community and the parents to go beyond that. And the program in itself, in addition to the curriculum and collecting data and being mindful of what the data tells us, we've also perfected or improved our admissions criteria to make sure that we do select ed-need students and families. My board of directors, who get involved on almost a daily basis, are part of those interviews, and it's a great way for them to get to know Bridgeport, for them to get to know families. And we are very mindful about selecting families that need us, and yet can commit to bringing their students to the bus stop on Saturdays, weekends, after school, whenever we operate, so that we can have access to them. So it is a balance. But what this interview has done is we've improved. We always assume that the parents know what's happening at Horizons. They know what we want from them. They know that this is a 20-year effort, and the reality is that they don't. So now, after meeting them face to face, they do know, and that's very important to us. They kind of understand, that we're going to work with your children and the families for a very long time. And tracking students in college, we're still in the learning stage. Again, this is a weak area for us because they're not with us anymore. We don't have them. They're off in an environment that's challenging to them. We're learning now. We spent some time with Achievement First to learn about what they're doing, and they have tremendous resources. We're not going to tackle that just yet until we get very smart at what it takes. But we do know from what we learned from the high school data that we do need to do more for our students, and especially if we have this beautiful incoming point when they're 4 and 5 years old, we can put together a package that will really change their lives. And improve Bridgeport public school relationships and information exchange. So the one thing that we did, which was smart, was that we did hire more teachers that teach in Bridgeport. I have three from New Beginnings. I have a board member who's from New Beginnings. But we have not improved our relationships with the schools and information exchange. So this continues to be an issue, and I'll just be transparent and say that there was an effort prior to my coming on board where we just reached out, phone calls, meetings, tracking report cards, did as much as we could, and then we realized quickly that they were positive, and then the minute we walked out of the door, we're out of the school's minds. We didn't exist. They were so happy, that we had their students, but that was it. We could not even get beyond the point of, oh, that's great, you have some of my students. We unfortunately don't take from the fellow grantees because we assume they already do a great job, so we have very few students, so the opportunity to collaborate is from a learning purposes, but I still can't have that discussion. But at some point we have to get back and interact and learn, because ultimately we're all working towards the same goal, and if we can communicate, it would be great. Any questions about this slide? So I was going to quiz the grantees, right where it says at the top in pink, where are we now, 2015, all I can think about is SL, PM, PE, and OM. I'm not going to do it, okay, fine. We want to get beyond that, obviously, and just be able to be at a point where we know everything that we need to do and that we're doing it. But I love the stage, and again, this is credit to Miralise and her contribution, because every conversation that we have, and we have many, revolves around those four terms. And it's very important to us as an organization that we keep track of that. The last piece that I want to mention is that I talked about the parents, schools, students, and some staff, but I've also mentioned the board. So something that we embarked on was to have very transparent conversations with the board of directors, and they already are extremely involved. But one example, and I don't recommend this and I no longer do it, but I remember sharing SAT scores with my entire board. So name of student, SAT score for all of my high school students, and they almost had a heart attack. One, because the names of the students were on the document and, was violating privacy, and two, because the scores were so low. We've gotten better. We now have a new SAT program, and our scores are about 200 points higher than the Bridgeport Public School scores that were just released. So we're on the right track. They're about 100 points lower than where we want to be, which is the national average. But we do have very frank conversations daily, weekly, and they're very informed about what takes place at Horizons. And it creates a level of dynamic and an integrity and focus that I really enjoy. So none of us sleep at night because we know what the goal is and that we have a lot more work to do. I already talked about some of these points, but we are smart and we've added capacity. We've hired a full-time and high school coordinator, and we also hired an academic director. This allows us to be much better at what we do. And the goal is that 100% of our team members have buy-in and that they know what they're doing. And we talked about Miralise's impact, the partnerships, the fellow grantees, lessons learned. This is a financial piece. We were able to hire staff and invest in staff because this particular grant, which is unique for us, is a multi-year grant, and it's very substantial. So it's one of the best news you can receive with the other hat that I wear, which is the fundraising hat. So I commend the foundation for making that choice. And going back to the slide where I said 4 to 24, that means you cannot walk away from us ever, really, because that 24 is going to become finding the students a job, and then after they get jobs, maybe marriage counseling and other pieces. So you cannot walk away because we have to keep going. We cannot let go, which is unhealthy by many measures, but trust me, once you work with 210 kids and you know all of them and their families, walking away no longer becomes an option. So that's my way of saying thank you. I really mean it. We focused on literacy because it's needed. We are going to focus on math in the future and replicate our results and our efforts. And we also run on Saturdays, which I've mentioned. You're welcome to come to Saturday Academy tomorrow. It's a limited intervention, but it allows us to have continuous collaboration and to see the students throughout the school year. We have now converted our Saturday Academies to reflect summer, which is like a duh moment. It only took us 7 years. But it is a reading Saturday Academy with a little bit of writing embedded, and everything that happens in the summer is replicated during Saturday Academy. And then strategic leadership, which is very important, and it's the SL, by the way, on the pink, stands for strategic leadership, is everywhere from the board, staff, faculty, having transparent and frank conversations, and also EDs and others being coached because we need to learn. So I don't like to measure us really, but I would say between 1 and 10, we're 6.5, 7-ish. We have a long way to go. But we're on the right track, and that's because of what we learned from you and because of the wonderful team that we have at Horizons, which mean everybody works really hard. Any questions? So this means you either did not pay attention or I did an amazing job, and I can't tell which one. Maybe a little bit of both? All right, so I just wanted to give you a snapshot of the literacy curriculum, the SCL components. What does it mean to have social emotional learning embedded in literacy? Well, we did the most basic thing, but that goes a very long way. We assigned each grade a combination of books to read that tackle a social emotional skill or character trait. And you can see at the top some of the books that we're reading, including our 7th graders are reading I Am Malala. Again, a struggle to get a 7th grader to read, but we have many ways of convincing them, all nurturing ways. But it's very important for us that we expose students to these books. And it was a very proud moment. Who thinks that a book can make such a difference? But I can tell you, watching my faculty, my teachers unpacking these books and resources that we purchased for them, and they were happy. They were proud. It all made sense. And of course, we did that prior to the summer. The questions are very important for us. And the person who wrote the literacy curriculum partnered with her colleague who was an expert in SEL. And these are questions that reflect the curriculum itself and the books that the students are reading. And it's something that we're learning to become aware of, and now they're slowly merging into the Saturday Academy focus. But the continuity that I spoke about is very important, and some of these questions bring up very interesting answers. So it's fun to be able to walk into any one of these classrooms, regardless of the age, and have conversations with the students on these topics. And it's doable, so we really enjoy it. Any questions? No? That's it? Oh, okay.